Well, good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar this morning on behalf of the Worshipful Company of Furniture Makers. So what are we going to be looking at today? Well, I think one of the most fundamental things really during the crisis has been this thought of innovation. And what I'd like to do is, first of all, introduce myself. My name is Peter Holland. I'm the founding director of Linear Structure, and it's my pleasure to chair a distinguished panel of industry leaders this morning as part of the Furniture Makers webinar series. Now, during the series, we're going to look at manufacturing, we're going to look at retail, we'll also look at how industry bodies can reach parliamentarians, as well as interior designers and designer makers. But today we're actually going to focus on manufacturing and have a discussion about how some of the adopted adaptive strategies that have been used during this really extraordinary period of time have benefited companies. We're going to invite our panelists to share some of their insights that I think will really be a positive influence and help many others that are facing similar challenges at the moment. So it's my great pleasure to introduce you to the panel today. I'm being joined by Charles Winn-Jones, who's the Operations Director at Herman Miller, Simon Spinks, the Chairman of Harrison Spinks, and Ian Oscroft, the Managing Director of Whitemeadow. And all of them are valued, good morning, all of them are valued corporate members of our livery. So for any of those excuse me, for any of those of you who are unfamiliar with the Furniture Makers Company, that's the furnishing industry charity. We're a London livery company and we represent industry at all different levels to ensure that it remains at the forefront of international competition. And just to give you an idea of what that means, that support could be in terms of education and training, a celebration of excellence in design and manufacturing, as well as helping people in need in the industry. So today's format is going to be very much an open discussion about some of these key topics involving innovation. But we'd also like you to be involved in the discussion. So if you look at the bottom of your screen here, you'll see there's a Q&A box. And we'd like you to pose your questions for the panel. If you'd like to put them in there, then we'll come to them towards the conclusion of our discussion. So let's kick off. When we think about a crisis, then leadership obviously comes to the forefront of many people's minds. So one of the first areas that we wanted to discuss together was looking at what does great leadership look like in terms of a crisis. What maybe examples have you been able to set for the people in your teams? Middle management, senior management, so that they can replicate that throughout the business. Maybe I could come to you, Ian, first on that question.
Okay. Well, the way that we see it within the business is that good leadership is about being completely visible and really trying to lead from the front. We have 6 directors here. When we went into lockdown at the end of March, we obviously had to furlough many people as though we had to shut the factories down. But we kept a team of around about 15 working permanently at home, etc. But all 6 of the directors were obviously involved in that. And we were very visible in terms of that team of people throughout the first best part of 3 months, with regular meetings with all the 15 people that we had working. And then when we came back, we opened the factories back up again around about the end of May. Again, we made sure that the directors were very visible with the workforce. We do have something in our business called Workplace, which is really Facebook for a work environment. And so what that allows us to do is communicate very quickly, easily, and efficiently, and be seen as well by all our employees. We also have a senior leadership team of 9 people. So between the 6 directors and the 9 senior leadership team, the 15 people there, we were able to, what I'd like to say is be very visible to all our 650 employees, really. We've put many things in place in terms of obviously trying to make sure there's a safe working environment for everybody. Everything from one-way systems in the factory, etc., to additional wash stations, staggered start times, etc. So we've I'd like to think that we have we've managed it so far pretty well, touch wood.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and maybe we could speak with you, Simon, for a minute, because I know we discussed that kind of awful day where you have to sit down and think, right, okay, what are we going to do now? How were you able to approach the situation?
Yeah, yeah, we've always been a bit sort of different in our approach. But I remember I've probably been on 2 Teams meetings or whatever before lockdown, and now, of course, we're on an average of about 2 an hour, aren't we? If you remember that didn't really exist as a feature of life, but we went into lockdown, and the first bit of discussion we're all having was doomsday scenario stuff. It was all, right, when do we run out of money? What's the actual date? Who's going first, right? Everybody get a list of the least important people in the business and come all the way back. So you go into all that sort of mentality of survive. And, of course, then the furlough announcement comes out. But we started having a daily sort of board team meet to just try and talk about communication to the workforce, make sure they were up to speed and what have you. But very, very quickly, and so almost we've been working on an idea for a decade, to be honest, which is the idea of being able to roll pack our handmade proper mattresses, not your conventional sort of foam ones. And we'd failed at every turn, but about 2 weeks before we went into lockdown, we tried something that was completely different to what we'd done before, and it showed a lot of promise. So quite quickly we started saying, all our retailers are now shut. We can't trade. The factory's shut. What could we do that would allow us to trade with all our customers having shut shops? We only deal with retailers. We don't do anything directly. And so, what's the channel? A lot of our retailers don't even have a good sort of consumer web channel, if you like. Obviously, the big ones do. So we started to realise, if we can take out the logistical challenge, because 2-man delivery on our products, high-end, big, heavy stuff, clearly being able to package it in a way that made all that easier in a COVID environment. Plus the fact it fits our sustainability sort of direction that we're going as well. We're half the diesel cost, the environmental cost of delivering a mattress. So we quite quickly got this little sub-project going with the leadership team, which was to develop this product at hyperspeed. So, we ended up flying a machine in from the States to create the capability, developing this core unit. We kept a team of about 10 people. So the only people in the factory were finance, who were dealing with the, getting paid, looking after customers, the government stuff, and this development team that stayed on doing their stuff. And we were able to feed that back to the rest of the workforce. So it gave us something positive to focus on through a period when you really didn't know. We're quite sensibly financed as a business, so we know if it was a game of holding your breath, we'd be in the last few. But we were in that kind of mentality. This gave us a different focus. It was quite interesting just how well the team gelled when you've got that kind of what feels like a war footing on the business. But we that's what we did, and it meant that we were in sales mode. We had this product cracked fairly quickly, and suddenly we were talking to customers about new product offer. And so weirdly, for us, it transformed, actually. We've had a very good sort of situation in the sense that we've expanded our fundamental footprint by offering something different. And funnily enough, with these things, the original concept for the thing probably didn't work so well, but again, showing that we're innovating through that period has kept the conversation with customers about the future and about something new. It's worked really well. So that was our experience. There's a bit of luck in there in the timing of us making that discovery.
Yeah.
But you get the gist. That's a rather long answer to the question. It's probably not even an answer to your question, but it's what we did.
Yeah. I think what it shows is, it's the mindset, isn't it, of where you're putting your energy and focus. And you've been able to come up with sort of a new product range, if you like, which is, you're not just trying to get back to normal, you're trying to take it to the next level, which I think is really interesting. Charles, just thinking a little bit about Herman Miller's approach to this whole idea of sort of leadership and innovation. Maybe first of all, thinking about the leadership side, with a global company, how were you able to address those challenges of keeping everybody engaged?
Well, for us, it's been a tough year, like everybody else. And really, the two things that we had was we had a clear plan to guide us through this period that came from our senior managers. We had a global playbook, but also we had to then step up the communication. So, we increased the cadence and we were doing global communications every couple of weeks, making sure that we were cascading down how the business was doing, what our next steps were, how we sort of walk through this. And we had then implementation teams around the globe, sort of dealing and implementing all of our bits, our protocols and stuff like that. And then also feeding that back up so that if there were any learnings, we could capture that and move forward. And also because we were going through different things at different times around the globe, there was regions that were slightly further ahead that we could get the learnings from them and try to implement that into other areas. So yeah, it was really about having a clear plan and an awful lot of communication. But we've carried on to invest. We think we've still got to look for opportunities to grow. We're still investing in new products. We're still investing in new plant and equipment, making sure that we sort of come out the back in a best position possible.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the key things when I was talking to you earlier was that, despite having to work from home, any projects, you kept those running, you kept those active, which is this same idea of, this is a great time to innovate. It's not a time to shut down.
Yeah, we've carried on with lots of projects. Some of them have been a little bit more challenging with factory improvements, tests of equipment, and so on and like that. But we found ways around that, and yeah, the business has continued to move in the right direction. I think we're positioning ourselves for now and for the future.
Yeah, great. So I'm just thinking a little bit about some of the ideas for innovation, because whether you're a micro or a macro business, we've all had to adapt to this disruption in different diverse ways. And it's often meant thinking about things more creatively, overcoming challenges, maybe being a bit nimbler in terms of design and manufacturing, but also, risk mitigation now in that journey of adaptive thinking has had to play a part. So now we've still got, continued unprecedented and challenging circumstances moving forward. What are some of the positive insights as a panel do you think you could share about innovative strategy to solve these problems? Maybe thinking first, if I can come to you, Simon, we were talking about how you've kept sustainability on the agenda in terms of how you've been constructing these new mattresses that you're working on.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, one of the kind of interesting things that has happened, I think, apart from accelerating people's view about where they buy things, they're being forced online and they don't want to go back quite so much. So an interesting thing. But I think another thing that's happened in the sort of general viewpoint of the world is we're suddenly faced with the fact that, meteors can hit the earth, pandemics can happen, and maybe climate change is real. And so it's kind of accelerating the relevance of that aspect, which for us, we've been directing our innovation towards sustainability for best part of a decade or more. And so for us, it's the world coming round to where we are positioned rather than us adapting our position to the world. But it does seem our components business, for instance, which in effect offers products that often replace less sustainable. Yeah, so our components division that offer products that often replace less sustainable components in furniture. They saw a 150% increase in sales, which presents quite an interesting challenge. As you can imagine, we've managed to kind of supply about 100% more than we did, but needless to say, it still leaves you with a bit to do. But and I think it's accelerating some of those changes and just allows us to think about doubling down on that direction. If the rest of the world's speeding up, we want to be in front of where the rest of it is at, and so that's what we're doing basically. It bodes well, doesn't it? Suddenly, when the end of petrol cars is coming, we think we already have constructions that are the equivalent to an electric car in a mattress, but it's already got the range, if you know what I mean. It doesn't have the problem that are currently, and there are enough charging points for our mattresses as well. So, we think we're in the right place for what comes next.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Charles, I know we were talking about how things have changed quite dramatically in terms of how and where sales are taking place for Herman Miller at the moment. What can you share on that with us?
Yeah, well, we've seen a big shift to the work from home and retail sales channels. And internally, that's meant we've had to adapt pretty quickly and change. We've invested in our online platforms to make sure that we can reach our customers. We've introduced new products and also modified old products to better fit the home environment. We were traditionally a make-to-order business, and we've had to completely change that and go to a make-to-stock to support this channel and find extra warehouse space. And then also how we deliver it, our contract business. We were shipping large vehicles of products to the customer, and we're now delivering one workstation to somebody in a specific location. So all of that's had to change, and the team here have done a great job in adapting very quickly and putting all of those processes in place, meaning that we can serve our customers and continue to grow.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really interesting. That dramatic changes really in all of those areas across the whole business to make it work. I'm assuming when you're talking about product adaptations, is that mainly to do with size to fit the home office environment?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, some of our desks can be quite large going into offices, and we've gone down to much smaller dimensions to support the home office. But also, we've seen, people want slightly different colours, whether they want polished metal parts on their chairs at home. So we've also seen a shift in the product mix and had to make sure we've got our supply chains in place to support that. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it's a very interesting point. So one thing I was interested in was whether there were any sort of new experiences that had changed the business model for you for the better that you could share that you might not have necessarily sort of known about beforehand, before this crisis.
Yeah, so we introduced a work from home allowance package for all of our staff, where they could make sure they kitted out their home office with the right desks, seating, screens, all of that sort of stuff. And really that's to make sure that the people at home were healthy and safe, and it reduces the stress for them, for meaning that they could work as productive as they were when they were in the office, which has gone down really well. And now we're also using that as a bit of a sales tool to sort of share with some of our larger clients, what we've done for our own staff and whether they would consider doing that, and we could help them, support them to provide that environment for their workers.
Yeah, I think it's such a massive thing. I think everybody would like to have some Herman Miller home office furniture for sure.
Yeah, it's one bonus.
Yeah, well, I think it's a huge impact, isn't it? If you think about it, if you're sitting at home on your I don't know, your kitchen dining room chair, it's just not sustainable long term. So I think we'll see some big changes.
Well, we talk about ergonomics and about people being healthy and safe in their work environment. It's only right that should happen at home as well. And also the productivity, our engineers who are working on multiple screens, we want them to be as effective as home as they are in the workplace.
Yeah, good. If I can come to you, Simon, for a minute. Thank you, Charles. Just thinking about that idea of, coming up with some things that you found that you hadn't really maybe discovered prior to COVID. We were just chatting about, the time when you first started to bring people back into the business.
Yeah, we probably all did in a manufacturing sense. You only if you're going to bring back a smaller team, because that's the way you start. We didn't realise quite the pent-up demand. We suspected the pent-up demand, but if you remember the way this thing unfolded, so for the first 2 or 3 weeks, you kind of just bring back your A team. And we found actually that we were significantly more productive. It shouldn't be surprising, really. You bring your best people back, it's only them, and they weren't being distracted. So that was a kind of realization that this what is possible if you have nothing but the best people that you've got, and that kind of informs what could be and how you could affect policies in the future to try and achieve that. So that was one of the things that we discovered along the way. But I mean, return to that previous question. I don't think about sort of innovations that have come about. I've sort of missed a bit out because a significant chunk of our customer base aren't they use online just to say we're here. So they're not a transactional online company. And we realised with the shop shut, that wasn't allowing them to trade as well as not allowing us to trade. So of course, it's quite a difficult discussion because I think the suspicion of our customers will be that we're trying to go direct, which is absolutely not the case. Our kind of product needs to be experienced in store most of the time, but there is a significant bunch of customers that would buy it without seeing it, and an increasing bunch of customers that might do that. So we would set up a website, a transactional website within our website that actually picked up the retailer. So that we could pay the retailer from that. And so that kind of innovation, it wasn't just the product that we ended up innovating, it was the way it was delivered as well. Obviously for us, we're not used to really being involved in a direct ship situation with the kind of products that we've normally got. And so we had to create all those relationships. So all those other things were part of that sort of similar story and, changed the way we see it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's such a relevant point because I was just reading a Gartner report on sales by 2025, and they were quoting a statistic that 80% of transactions will be done over digital channels in the next 5 years. So we're seeing huge disruption and changes in the sales environment of how these products are getting to customers. So I think, there will be a lot of change there, definitely.
I think, though, that doesn't mean to say that people ain't going to go see the product first. They just have to try and do the transaction digitally. And, I think whilst there might be too many shops out there, I think very quickly you're going to get to a point where there's just enough. And that long live the shop, I think, is what's going to happen. If the product is an event, if it's important to you, you will go and make the effort to go and experience it first if it's an important decision. We all know what it's like. It's not an important decision. If it's pedigree chum that you get it from Amazon or whatever, you don't need to think about it. But there's that different world. So I think weirdly, even though the future is digital in terms of the way you actually do the financial transaction, I think actually the shop has a massive future, even though there's a bit of an adjustment going on.
Yeah, interesting. So let's move on, gentlemen. Let's have a chat about one of the other areas that we were discussing, which was this idea of communication. I mean, I think we all know the benefits of working collectively in an office. You know, there's an interchange of ideas, a bit of energy there that you get that you don't when you're working from home. So, have you been able to maintain this sort of level of teamwork and interaction in a working from home environment? And if you have, could you share some ideas on how you've achieved this? Maybe could I just ask you, Ian, because I know that you've been working with
fundamentally in terms of working, we employ 650 people, of which there's around about 70 administrative staff. So anybody who works in one of our factories is actually not working from home. They're actually in the factory and working. The administrative staff, we've got a rota whereby people are in and out of the business. So we've probably got half the people in at any one time, and people work maybe 2 to 3 days at home and then some time in the office and then back out again. And each department is sort of running sort of on that basis from that point of view. But we as a business, even prior to COVID, have been very proactive on communication with our workforce, which is all based on trying to be a proper business and making sure you retain your workforce. Getting hold of good people it's hard to do in the first place, and it's even more difficult to keep hold of them. So what we do try and engage with our entire workforce. We set up a few years ago what we class as a joint communication committee, which is basically 17 employees, and it can be anybody from they're employee representatives, and it can be anything from an upholsterer to a sewing machinist to just a production operator, a cushion filler, whatever. And we have quarterly meetings where myself and my operations director and my HR manager, we impart all sorts of information about the business. And then the Joint Communication Committee, one of their roles is to go and then relay that information back to the to each of the factories. We then, prior to COVID, introduced obviously Workplace, which some of you may or may not know about. But as I mentioned before, fundamentally it's Facebook. It's run by Facebook, but it relates to a workplace. Similar sort of platform that Facebook has, and we have an awful lot of our employees signed up to that, and on that we put all sorts of communication. I myself try and do about a 6 weekly update to the entire workforce via a video, which is probably a 10-minute video, just saying, look, this is where we are as a business. This is what our orders look like. This is what our lead times are. This is what issues we have got, what we haven't got, etc.
That's great. I really like that idea, Ian, because it's a way for you to engage with a large number of people on a really regular basis. And do you think that this has a really positive impact with people's thoughts and feelings about what's happening with the company, especially during turbulent times?
Yeah, I think people feel a bit more engaged with the business. And look, the more you know about what and who you work for, I think the more you feel part of it. And that's really what we're trying to do is as I say to everybody in this business, that everybody counts. Everybody, if you didn't count, the job wouldn't be here. So everybody counts, and that doesn't matter who it is in the business, because if that one person and that one job is not there, it will have a knock-on effect on several other people. And I just we try to relay the message across that every role in this business is a really important role.
That's a good point. Good point to remember to get across. Charles, could I just ask you to sort of comment on the same ideas around communication? Because I know you had some quite innovative ways that you'd done that at Herman Miller.
Yeah, so communication, I don't think I can say how important it is to keep people connected and informed and all of that. And we launched just before COVID, actually, an app, a social media app for Herman Miller Group called The Lounge. And on there, we put all our key information, all our key communications. It's got global reach. It's real time. We encourage all our staff to, check in maybe at break, have a look, see what's going on. And some of this can be formal business update news, but other stuff can just be some good news stories. I can go down and take a picture of someone and say, hey, look at this order just going out onto a trailer now, whether it's someone's long service award or someone's at an install and they're sharing some pictures of what all of the furniture looks like in. So we just use it as a really neat, quick way of communicating with everybody around the globe. We also have different channels for different business units. You can sign up to ones that you want, but everybody's on the global, and then you might go to some of your more local channels.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how so much of that communication has shifted from predominantly email onto some of these live chat platforms, which are much more engaging, and they keep everybody in the loop without having to worry about who's CC'd in on this. You can just check in. So I think that's a great way to get people together.
Yeah, it's worked really, really, really well for us, and it's a tool that's used a lot every day. It hasn't been without its challenges, though. Communication, in our factories, we used to have meeting spaces that you could get quite a lot of people in. But now with social distancing, that we can probably only get 15, 20% in. So we've had to do a lot of work through the last year, figuring out the best method of communicating with people in the shop floor, outside of the lounge. So, we've tried videos, presentations, and I think we're getting there now with delivery of local content and allowing that feedback as well. It's certainly given us some challenges. Yeah,
I can imagine. I know that before you'd have like maybe 4 groups of 50, but now you have to just get that to such a small group, and then you've got to deliver the same message over and over. So it's like, okay, we're going to have to do this, but it is a time and resource and everything else. So it's
but for us it's so important that we get those messages across and we allow that feedback, that it's time well spent.
Yeah, definitely. So just thinking about current challenges. Before, Ian, I know we were talking about this before, but before the pandemic, rapid fulfillment on orders was really a key driver for success. Have you found that the customers are sort of more accepting of longer lead times? Has that any of those restrictions in the last few months made a difference, or how do you see that now?
I think it's just happened naturally, and I think it's almost that everybody's had to. For as long as I can remember, the business here has had a lead time of anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks, really, give or take the product, and then end of March. We're all panicking, as Simon says, about whether we're actually going to have a business in a couple of months' time. When we there were a reasonable amount of orders throughout April and May, but as soon as retail could open up again, we were inundated with thousands and thousands of orders. I think we make sofas and chairs and we make bed frames. And the one thing that COVID has done, of course, is cause people to have to sit down more and probably sleep more. So we're lucky. We're lucky probably in our industry for many people who make those products. But yeah, look, we sort of overnight we ended up going virtually to 12, 13, 14 week lead times. The only good news is that everybody else, same thing happened for everybody else, of course. Sure. and including things that were coming from overseas, which were probably out there anyway, and of course some of the container problems that have caused excessive deliveries as well. So, it was pretty hard the last 6 months of last year to probably find a sofa under 12-week lead time, I would have thought. So, certainly from a made to order point of view. So I think it just became an accepted within the trade. Okay. That's the way it sort of evolved, really.
Right. Simon, one question that I wanted to ask you was with regard to circular manufacturing, because I know Harrison Spinks pride themselves on this, and rightly so. But I was just interested, in view of the challenges of the pandemic, has this strategy served you well? And could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to it a bit earlier, in the sense that the where everybody now sits, the Blue Planet thing happened a few years ago, didn't it? And we were kind of, the environment was in the news and all the rest of it for a good decade before, but it never really got to a point where it would affect a consumer decision. We all knew it was coming. It's all there, and the Blue Planet thing happened, and suddenly people started to take it more seriously. I think this is another one of those moments. I think that the pandemic has it's accelerated the move to online, sort of from a transaction point of view. But I think it's also accelerated where consumers are up to regarding will it affect their purchasing decision. So it's just fueled us up to go harder, deeper. We're trying to do things before the rest of our industry does them. I think they're all coming. We just want to lead the way, really, and show what's possible. One thing we're doing right now, and by the end of March, we'll have our own recycling plant for spent mattresses. We've gone out with a commitment that the products that we now made that have got no glue in them at all, no foaming at all, no FR chemicals on the mattresses, and this helps. And they're also designed in a way that we can take them apart. And the crazy thing is, taking those nasties out of the product has actually made the product better. So we're in a situation where those mattresses, when they've had a life in the field and come back to us, we believe we'll be able to make a profit from taking them apart. So we'll do it for free. So that we're setting up a recycling plant right next to British Steel. Because a substantial amount of the material in our product, steel, the most recycled material on earth. And, if we're going to take the mattresses apart somewhere, it makes sense that we can put the squashed springs, compress them in a bale and send them up the road to be melted back down to receive the wire to turn back into springs. So we're busy on all those kind of things and trying to live it, really just, live it. We're even looking at, because we have a farm, we have 2 farms now actually, where we grow a lot of fibre for the materials. We own a bit of land, and you look at kind of how can we offset our own sort of carbon footprint. And one way is sustainable power generation. So we're looking at solar panels in some of those fields. Could we get wind? Could we do wind turbines? Again, the downside of steel is it's very power hungry to even recycle or produce. So whilst it's recyclable, it consumes a lot of juice. So that coming from a sustainable source is important. So it just means we're on the right track. We've just had to wait for the world to catch up a bit, but at least we're a bit further down the road than a lot of people, on this. So we just carry on, speed up, and keep pushing it. And I think, like I say, it's meant that actually we've got to go faster because everyone else has now realised this is where.
Yeah, no, and it's good to hear that. It's good to hear that. Great. So let me just go to a few of the questions now, because there's one section I just wanted to touch on before we go to that, and that was just on well-being, because I think it's definitely a key element, isn't it, of this whole crisis and challenge. Mental health for people, is critical. And is this something that you or your teams have experienced? And if so, what have you done to recognise this, or to really to help management to deal with those issues? Maybe that's something. Maybe Charles, I could come to you on that question.
Yeah, sure. We've been keeping a close eye on that with our teams, especially when they're working remotely. We have a mental health and safety rep. We have 2 of them in the business. So we've done a bit of training with our team leads and our managers, just looking for signs, making sure that, especially people who are living on their own and might be really isolated, that we're reaching out and connecting them. And then also just adding to that, as I said, it's been a tough year. We've also tried to take the time and encouraged our teams to look at ways of just keeping engaged and keeping morale up with each of the teams. We have end of the week quizzes with little prizes for everybody, and it's trying to finish the week with a bit of a smile rather than worrying how the week's been. We've done art competitions. We've done funniest pet photo competitions. In team meetings, we've encouraged people to take 10, 15 minutes out at the end to really sort of call out someone in another team that's helped them through this period, and also to just talk about a funny story that's happened in work, because it has been tough. But I think there's some incredible stuff that's gone on in our business, and I'm sure every other business. And we've tried to sort of make people find time to celebrate that and recognise it, because it's probably now needed more than ever. Yeah,
no, definitely. I don't know, does anybody else have a comment?
I think, from our point of view, I mean, just on that, I mean, our HR team have been extremely proactive on all sorts of helpline details for anybody who may feel they've sort of been affected from a mental point of view, with the whole of COVID. And we put regular updates on our workplace system for that. I mean, with our administrative team, and we in some ways try to let people make their own decisions whether they do or don't want to be in as well. I mean, because it suits some people actually, because they quite, if they're a young kid who's living at home with a mum and dad, etc., and they've only got the bedroom to try and work from, they might actually prefer to be in the office. And we have got 1 or 2 people who actually do say, can I work 5 days a week in the office? We've got others who, would say, look, I can do the whole thing from home, and I prefer to work 5 days at home. So we've tried to be flexible wherever we can in terms of working with everybody on that.
Yeah, excellent. I think it's just having that human element, isn't it, to understand that we need flexibility. With each individual's got different circumstances, and it can be hugely challenging for people to work from home, depending on those personal circumstances. So yeah, that's a really good point. So I just wanted to give a little time over. I've got a few minutes just left now to maybe look at some of the questions that have been posed for the panel. Let me just have a quick look here. Excuse me. So I have a question from Colin Evans. He's asked, how will companies progress with a circular manufacturing strategy if local skills are more difficult to find and supply partnerships are not utilised, leaving the only option for supply chain outside of the UK? So I will leave that open to you, gentlemen.
Well, I'll jump in there if that's. I mean, we recognise, one of the problems we have from upholstery manufacturing is lack of sewing machinists and upholsterers, the Brexit has caused upholsterers from overseas to dry up. So 3 years ago, we set up our own internal sewing school. And, we literally are running a school for trainee machinists. And every 6 months, we follow a course. The actual course is called a Modern Upholsterer Apprenticeship. So we've been doing that for 3 years with our machinists. And we're we're starting that in the summer with upholstery as well. So we literally in our business are going to have upholstery and sewing training schools, because the way forward, I think, certainly for sofa manufacturing and bed manufacturing is grow your own, and that's what we're going to do. Yeah,
Simon, you got a thought?
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's funny you should say grow your own. We literally do with the materials at the farm. So we're already very, very vertical. We draw wire, we build machinery, we grow fibre, we have a non-wovens plant, we weave our own fabric, we make our own springs, we make our own non-woven fillings. We pretty much make every component that goes in the product. And again, I think this helps us know that what's going in is right. It means that we can design the components to come apart and be circular, because this is a question about being circular. So if you've got a natural filling in a mattress, it wants to be all natural. And if you can, you want to keep it as a sort of singular material rather than blending it up with polyester, in which case you take it out of the mattress when it's spent. You can't do anything with it other than burn it. If you keep your natural, your synthetic, you can recycle both of them. It's little things. It's the way the things are put together. But because we've got a massive input in innovation around the components themselves, we can make a product that's designed to have a life after its life. And that's how we're doing it. So we're kind of proof. We're probably the most vertical business in the universe in terms of the sector we're in. And it proves it's possible. You can, what used to be. We were doing all this when all the books tell you to outsource everything. And it takes a bit of time to build the expertise, but it gives you a point of difference. It means you can control, you can hand on heart say that raw material comes from there, and that, and all the rest of it. And it's the crazy thing for us, we're talking about the massive expansion. We ran out of space. We didn't have the same problems with raw materials that other companies had. We just ran out of a room and we couldn't magic that up fast enough. So, ability to respond isn't just having your own sort of raw material manufacturing. But there are massive challenges to making all your own stuff as well. It's not a walk in the park, no question. But it gives us that sort of possibility to be more circular more quickly.
Thank you. I've got a question here from Dids McDonald. She said, with the UK forging ahead with new trade deals, what does a post-COVID Britain and Brexit mean in terms of challenges and opportunities?
So I don't mind going for a bit of this. So for us, post-Brexit, Europe's a key market for us, a large proportion of our business here in the UK. So we had to do a lot of work in preparing for that, a lot of making sure that all our documentation was right, coming from our suppliers, but also all our commercial documents were done correctly. We operate more or less a just-in-time business. So making sure all of that was in place was key. And the sort of the feedback we had was we were doing a pretty good job in this from all of our hauliers. And I think what it's done is meant that, we can service our European market very well, but likewise, we can service the UK market as we're importing. So I think it's put us in a pretty strong position now to get out the blocks pretty quickly since January, and to figure out how we can continue to improve on that and service both customers on both sides of the channel as well as we can as we move forwards.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a bit of a friction, isn't it? I've found it nothing but a pain in the rear, because there's a lot more paperwork and delay in getting your goods out there. You're paying a bit more duty on the stuff that might be coming in. It's not helpful, is my view. I don't think it'll change anything in the long run, because we'll learn to cope with it. And I think there's enough difference in our product that we can internationally sell it as well anyway. But it's not been helpful, the whole thing, I don't think, the Brexit scenario.
No, I concur with that. I mean, obviously the agreement was done so late that it was very difficult to know exactly what we had to do. But I mean, fundamentally at this moment in time, what I see Brexit's done for our industry is, one, put prices up, and secondly, cause more paperwork. Now, whether that will obviously settle down, but it probably won't do whilst COVID's on. So, we've probably got the remainder of this year to let it all, as Boris says, get through the teething problems. But they're probably a bit longer than what he thinks they are.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Well, sadly, our time is almost up this morning. We're going to have to draw our discussion to a close. It's been really fascinating to have all the insights from you, from the different manufacturing journeys and how you've been able to deal successfully during this past year. I mean, I would say the key takeaways from everything that you've said are, one, the strong leadership and the value of that in providing clear direction, the right mindset on looking for opportunities to innovate. So you weren't just looking to restore the existing process, but really to take it to the next level in many of these operations. And being proactive about that as well. Looking at opportunities where you could, really try to not just on product, but across the board, whether it was logistics, whether it was sustainability, all of these areas, you've been able to apply this same principle. I think also another key takeaway was the power of communication in keeping people united. I think that's clearly stood out to me, as well as well-being and the importance of that, short term, but also long term, because we've seen the value of the skilled people that are working within your organizations. So I want to thank you very much, gentlemen, Charles, Simon, and Ian, for sharing all of those insights with us. I think it's been really valuable. I can see from the chat that there's still quite a few remaining unanswered questions. So what I'm going to do is ask the panel, maybe after the session, we can basically just go through some of these and answer some of these questions. Because what we'd like to do is publish and distribute a post-summary event for you, which outlines the approaches that were taken and any details. But before we end our webinar this morning, I'd just like to raise a little bit of awareness for the charity. The Furniture Makers' vision really is for a thriving British manufacturing industry, furnishing industry, where we've got talented workforce, we're manufacturing high quality products, but we're also supporting those people, whether they're in need right now in the industry or have served in the past. And during this period, many people have received personal grants from the charity. So if you know anyone that's in need right now, they may not be aware that the Furniture Makers Company can help them. So please, we invite you to get in touch. But also, if you're one of the growing number of UK companies that are participating in the One Step Champions program, to get the word out to the workforce in the industry, then also please let us know. It's simple, it's free to do that, but it just gets the word out for support. So if I can encourage you, before you leave the webinar today, you'll be directed to a 90-second video, which will show you the actual real value and impact some of this charitable work is having on people's lives. So I think you'll find it inspiring and really worthwhile. So thank you very much to all of our panel this morning. It's been a pleasure to be with you. I hope as an audience you've enjoyed the insights that we've shared, and we wish you a very good day. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
After COVID had hit was really a worrying time for me, because it was looking at where the future was going. Not having that regular work in was going to mean that I was going to start struggling to get my rent paid. So it could have meant the end of my business. I started my business roughly a year and a half, 2 years ago. In that time, it was sort of a slow build up. I was just about getting to the point where I had nice regular work on, but COVID hit. Wasn't sure what was next, wasn't sure where the jobs were going to come from. basically I was going to have to try and find some money from somewhere.
The Furniture Makers Company are trying to reach out to everybody who's been adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The advice I would give people that are struggling at the moment is go to our website, look at the section on the COVID-19, look at the application form, send in all the paperwork that we have asked for, and then we can process it very, very quickly.
The application process was really simple. I got the application through the email, got that sent off, and within 3 days I had the money in my account. The grant freed up my headspace really financially. It opened up my creative side of my brain again, allowing me to really focus on getting furniture made and getting furniture sold.